everyone. This is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I have a question for you. If people have saved everything over the years, saved everything just to do business with you, how would you treat them? I mean, they saved their life savings. How would you treat them? Would you treat them differently than you do on a regular basis today? Or would you treat them the same as you do today? My guest, Mr. Vance Morris, he has a company called Deliver Service Now, and they're at deliverservicenow.com. We're going to talk about this exact subject and how he learned from Walt Disney World, because he worked there for over 10 years, how Walt Disney does their sales and how they run their company, and how you can adopt what they're doing and bring it into your company. Take a pen and paper. This is a great episode. You're going to love it. Speaking of loving it, if you're interested in driving your revenue up predictably, or you're also interested in your follow-up processes, we're running 2 masterclasses, and just email me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com and say, Doug, I want to come to the 90-minute masterclass on the RPM, which is the reliable, predictable, measurable revenue growth, and or the follow-up. And I'll make sure that we get a link out to you so that you can enroll in that free masterclass. They're 90 minutes each, and come to both of them if you want. Let's go talk to Vance right now. And I want you to write down right now, if they save their entire lives to do business with you, what do you think you might alter in your process, and how would you treat them, and how could you actually sell more by answering that question? Let's go talk to Vance and find out. Hey, Vance, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
I appreciate it, Doug. We're going to have a good time today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, folks, those of you who don't know Vance, he also was a rock musician back in the 80s. So we have a kind of a parallel life, Vance, you and I. In that regard. Why don't you tell people what you do, set the frame here, and we'll go from there.
You're bringing back memories. I appreciate that. Good gracious. Yeah, certainly. So real quick, just background so that everything makes sense going forward. I've spent a decade working for the Mouse, Walt Disney World down in Orlando, Florida. So everything I've done, I've taken all my Disney knowledge, packaged it up, and I've used it in other corporate settings, and most importantly, I've used it in my own businesses. So in addition to all this coaching and consulting stuff that I do, I actually own real bricks and mortar businesses. So I'm not just one of those guys that kind of spouts off on theory and have never done it before. I have 3 home service businesses here in Maryland, and everything that I teach my clients and my coaching members, I've done it before. A lot of them I've been doing for 17 years. So I have a little bit of street cred with a lot of folks. So it's kind of the background on who I am and where I'm going.
And you brought up a really good point here that's a little unrelated to our topic, but I want people to understand. Folks, be careful who you listen to, because there are a lot of people out there who, are coaching, our consultants, our trainers, and it doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean, but the question is, do you need the experience that's actually in the field, or you just need theory that's coming out of books and training programs, right? And so I'm a big soapbox guy on promoting that, Vance. So and it's wisdom really when it comes down to it, right? Like when we failed and whatever, maybe multiple times, and I'm sure that you've had in your home services businesses and other businesses, you've had down times and up times.
More than I'd like to count.
Right? That creates wisdom, folks. Yeah. And as long as you learn the lesson and you don't keep repeating it, that's just foolery. And I've been also guilty of doing that. I don't know about you, Vance, but I've definitely, like, why did I do this again? I lost 50 grand the last time, and then I lost 120 this time, right? And so folks, it's a very important lesson. And so learn from people who have been there, done that, especially in fields that you are looking to do. It's a heck of a lot shorter learning curve.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, there are. I mean, there's plenty of people that can go out and you can get a little piece of paper to hang on the wall and says you're a coach or a consultant and really isn't worth the paper it's written on. But yeah, you're absolutely a lot of charlatans out there. So yeah, be careful. I agree with you.
Yeah, I liken it to when you go through college. I was in the medical field originally, so you go through college, and then it's like, okay, now you're going to go into your internship, right, in the medical field or whatever. You don't know what you're doing when you go out of college and you get in there, and then somebody, you're like, okay, we're going to draw blood now. Now this person's flailing around in the bed, like, don't poke me with this needle, right? It's a very that wasn't written in the book. It wasn't,
Right.
that type of thing. So,
Uh,
so we're going to talk about, well, I have to, everybody's going to ask this question. How was it at Disney? Like, what was Disney like working at, right? I mean, that's because it's Disney, right? So,
yeah, it was Disney. I mean, it was different from most places. I mean, in the end, it was a job. I mean, I worked in the resorts, so it was like working in a hotel. It just happened to be a Disney hotel. The standards were pretty high, and the stakes were really high. So there was a certain amount, not so much on the hourly employees, but certainly on the management, that the one thing we had to understand was people saved their entire lives to come to Disney. And if that didn't wake you up, and make you pay attention, that, I mean, yeah, I mean, Disney's expensive, right? And it's only gotten more expensive, over the years. But there are people that have, put their nickels in their coffee cans. I don't know if people still do that, but, I mean, they have just scrounged for 5, 10 years so that they could go on a Disney vacation for 4 days.
yeah,
And they expect perfection. They
yeah,
have this expectation that nothing is going to go wrong. It's going to be this magical experience. And anytime you add people to the mix, because the cast members at Disney are people, things can go wrong. Now, do they get it right 97% of the time? Yes. It's the 3% that you got to watch out for. But, it was a really great place. I mean, some of the lessons I learned there, the first lesson, and people always say, what did you learn at Disney? And they always expect the customer service or customer experience or how to pick up trash before it hits the ground and that kind of stuff. And what I first learned was systems and processes. Disney has a process for everything. I mean, you want to change a bus tire, they got a process for it. You want to carry a tray in a restaurant, they got a process for it. And what I learned is those processes gave the employees freedom to do all of those magical moments. So if you're working in a restaurant and you follow all the processes and they become really just muscle reflexes, that you're doing it by rote. Now you've got time to, play with the kids, do the pictures, get the autographs, all the fun stuff that Disney's known for. It's because you're just going through the motions on your process, and it gives you the freedom to do the cool stuff, the wow stuff that Disney's known for. Same thing for, business owners now, is if you have processes in place, that gives you freedom from the business to go and do other things. So, we mentioned I've got 3 home service businesses. Well, I took my Disney training. I made systems. I've got marketing systems, operation systems, retention systems, you name it. Plug those suckers in. I put a general manager in charge. I spend 90 minutes a week now in those businesses because all he has to do is manage the systems. All I have to do is cash checks and kiss babies. It's not that simple, but it is. I do about 90 minutes a week. I make sure the banking's straight, and I meet with the GM once a week.
So I'm going to go down this path with us. And we'll come back into our original concept, but that we
Sure,
wanted to discuss. But I think it's important for people to really understand. You're bringing up 2 really critical points. People save their entire lives to go to Disney, and I know I used to live in Metro West outside of Orlando. So
sure.
and I could hear people bragging to their friends about how much money they're going to spend on their week vacation at Disney. Tens of thousands of dollars, you know, and and you folks recognize that fact. So my challenge for all of you on this, listening to this is, what if you adopted what Vance was just saying about, you pretended, even if it's not true, that people have saved their entire lives to do this transaction with you, and they're laying everything on the line that they've built over the years. How would you treat them differently than you might be treating them now today?
Yeah.
Because the one thing that Disney does amazingly well is to get you come back again and again and again and again. And you know you're going to go in, no disrespect to Disney, and get financially fleeced every time you go in as a parent. You know this, right?
Well, they're not like the dwarf bashful about taking money from you.
No, I mean, even the parking at Disney is not, it's not cheap, in my opinion, right? But they've got it laid down to an experience, right? When you go there, it's the greeting, and it's you take the monorail or take the boat and come over into the whatever world, right? And they've got it down to a science. Now, I have to say, the last time I went back to Disney, it's kind of faltered a little bit between that. That was like 5 years ago versus my expectation of earlier years. But if you treat your people like they've saved their entire lives to do business with you, how differently would you treat them? That would be my question for everybody. And systems and processes allow you to provide magical moments. How many of you are stressed out of your mind because it's so chaotic throughout the day? Or worse yet, you're recreating the same email, the same whatever, over and over and over again from scratch, because you have no system, no process to it. You have, every time a client comes in or a customer comes into your doors, you're kind of like making it up as you go. Well, Disney doesn't do that. And I know that from looking, being there and kind of watching what goes on in Disney and what you're saying here, Vance. So when it comes to getting freedom in the business, because you're saying you're working like 90 minutes in each business, so you got 3 businesses, so you're working 4.5 to 5 hours a week on potentially on these.
Oh, I meant 90 minutes for all 3. That's for the 3.
Oh,
not
so
4
an hour and a half a week.
minutes. That's it.
Okay, even better, right? For most
Even
people.
better, right?
Now, some people go, that's just unrealistic, Vance. There's no way that can happen. And I want to assure people, we worked with a company, guy, they were doing $200 million a year. And this guy was working like 60, 70 hours a week, every week. He was out of his mind. He's like, I'm cutting this business back. I can't take it anymore. And we said, well, just what you would say, Vance. Why don't you create systems and processes and have managers for every single piece of this process? And you show up at meetings each week with these people, and you run the company and you let the people run the business.
Yeah.
Right? Or vice versa. You run the business, let the people run the company. And we ended up taking this gentleman, and he went from about 65 hours a week down to about 20. And 14 hours a week, he was in meetings. He had 14 different departments, divisions that we were running. And and he kept his business at 200 million, and he worked half, 1/3 of the time, actually. And so it can be done, folks. You just have to know how to do it. And a guy like you, Vance, could teach people how to do this, I'm assuming.
Yeah, definitely. And some of the strategies, I mean, it's no secret. I mean, heck, one of the ways to do it is raise your prices. So because a lot of people say, I can't afford to do that. That's, well, whose fault is that? You
Right.
know? And a lot with pricing is, head trash of the entrepreneur, the business owner. And, luckily I learned this lesson long time ago, and I am certainly not bashful about raising our prices. And we do strategic pinpoint price increases, and then we also do across the board price increases. But that also, that pricing allows us to serve less people but still maintain and or be more profitable.
Yeah.
So there's less wear and tear on equipment. There's less wear and tear on employees. Our profitability is still fantastic, but we're not working as hard. And I think that if we had stayed as a coupon clipper, run of the mill commodity cleaning business, yeah, I'd probably be spending more time in it because we'd still have to be hiring. My shortest tenured employee is 4 years. We just don't have to hire people. I haven't hired anybody in 4 years.
Well, they're probably being well paid.
Well, yeah, they are.
Right?
But I mean,
Because
this is all the stuff that goes into it, so to be able to get this freedom that I have from the business, I mean,
right.
if I wanted to, could I go in and work it? Sure. I mean, I don't know what the hell I would add to it, except maybe look for, opportunities for acquisition and things like that. But that doesn't charge me up. That's not what I enjoy doing.
So when we raise our prices, we usually have better quality clients too. That's one of the things that people don't realize about doing that. And it doesn't mean you have to be outrageous on your prices, folks. And by the way, there is price sensitivity in every single market. So if you're doing X, I would recommend that you incrementally try to raise your prices. Don't just like triple them overnight, because it could really hurt your business. But to kind of give an illustration, Vance, when I was going through college, we were musicians, you and I, back in those days. And I decided I'm going to be a DJ too, right? Because DJs were now starting to make more money than bands at that
There's
time.
only one of you.
Yeah, and there's one of me, and I didn't have to worry about my bass player drinking the whole profits away of the day. And so I became a DJ, and I just came in and I was just going to try it, and I was charging like $200, $300 we were doing like weddings and corporate events and things like that. And a friend of mine said to me, and boom, I was getting a lot of work. Like I had like 100 jobs in my first year. It was crazy, the schedule. And my friend said, Doug, you're way underpriced. Raise your prices up. And I said, to what? And he goes, double them at least. And I go, I can't double my prices. His name was Chris. And I said, Chris, I can't double my prices. He's like, yes, you can. You'll work with less people and you'll make more money. And I said, no, I can't do that. And the reason I'm telling people this, because I know people are going to resist what you're talking about. And so I said, and he was just on me. And I said, you know what, Chris, I'll raise it by $50. So I did. I went to 350 and they kept coming. Then I said, well, I'll raise it to 4. They kept coming. I raised it to 450. They kept coming. And I'm like, okay, this is working. I'm making more money. But what I noticed is I was no longer playing what I called the Marconi Club, which was you go in there, they spend $75 for the hall, they have plastic dishware, and people bitching up a storm because it's plastic dishware, right? And so now I was getting into like some better hotels and things like that. So I said one day, I said, you know what? Let me raise it to 650. And they kept coming. 750 kept coming. 850, 9,000, 1,200. By the end, we were getting $2,200. But now we were no longer playing at the Marconi Club. We were playing at the Ritz-Carlton.
Right.
Right? And the people that were referring us were also people who knew people at the Ritz-Carlton. And they, and some of the very high-end country clubs. I mean, $250 a plate for weddings, things like that. I was making more money and doing 1/4 of the jobs that I was doing when I first started out.
Yep.
And so what I want people to understand is what you're telling them works. And there's going to be a natural fear for most people when they hear this. They're going to be like, oh, I can't do that. But folks, if you own a restaurant, think about this. If you're charging $15 for a chicken dish, let's say, right? And you just raised your prices to $15.25 or $15.50. Do you think anybody's going to throw themselves on the floor and throw a fit over that? They're not. Now, if you went to $37 on that chicken, they probably wouldn't buy it. But the reality is that 50 cents is profit at that point. So
Yep.
what Vance is telling you is spot on. Vance, what's another thing that they could do?
Well, certainly I think where they gain the price elasticity is in the experience that they provide. Um, because Disney and putting people in an environment that is conducive to sales. So if you have your own store or your own office, you're in what I would consider a friendly sales environment. If by chance you have businesses like that I own, where we go into people's homes, we are in a hostile sales environment. We're in somebody's kitchen and we got to sell our stuff. So we have to literally try and create an environment that'll be conducive to our sales. So we will go in and try and take over a kitchen table or a counter, and we'll put our bottles of spot remover around, and we'll put up a little iPad with a video playing, and we've got a folder that's got all our warranties and guarantees, and we've got a little poster that we put over here. So we take over like half of the dining room table, and so that we try to get the customer to just focus on that, so that they're now at least somewhat in our world. And I mean, that's what Disney does so well, is that, I mean, you can't compare outside prices to Disney prices because they're incomparable. It's apples to oranges.
Yeah.
Like you can't get gummy bears at Disney. They don't exist. You can't find them. But you can get goofy gummies.
Right.
And you can't get goofy gummies outside of Disney. So how do you know what goofy gummies are supposed to cost? You got no idea. Now, gummy bears, you go to 7-Eleven or convenience store, it's like $5 for 9 pounds. And, you go to Disney to get goofy gummies, well, it's $9 for 2 ounces. But they're goofy gummies. You can't get them anywhere else. So you got there, but Disney's put you in that environment. Same thing with us. If you've got an office, and you're an attorney or you're a financial advisor or even a chiropractor, you should have a room or at least an area where you go to close your cases. Preferably a room, and it should be set up to further the sale. It should not be, oh, yeah, come into my office and then, let me get my lunch and this stack of papers off of the chair. Okay, have a seat here. And then, you're not even ready for doing a sales presentation. You should have, I worked with some probate attorneys out in California. It's a huge firm. And one of the things they decided to do was they had a closing room, but they wanted to, what I call, plus it or make it better. So they taught all of the attorneys how to be baristas, and they gave a coffee drink menu to the people that were waiting in the room to their favorite coffee drink, and then either the attorney or a paralegal or somebody would go in the back, make their favorite coffee drink, and bring it out. And then, of course, on the walls are testimonials and pictures of them out fishing and kids. I mean, they made their environment. And I think that's what so many people miss, is that they take for granted, oh, this is my store. It's mine. I don't have to do anything else. Oh, no, you do. You've got to make this ready to make a sale. And I think that's just forgotten. And if you've got to go out somewhere to make a sale, the work is just doubled or tripled, but you still have to do something. You still have to, overcome that challenge of being in a hostile sales environment.
Can we sum all this up, Vance, by saying that every single business on the planet is a sales business?
100%.
Right? And that every single business on the planet who is a sales business, if they want freedom out of that, they must create systems and processes in order to create the freedom.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And like you experienced at Disney with the $9 2-ounce gummies, right? That we've got to create a unique differentiation for our clients to want to buy only from us within our own ecosystem.
100%.
And so, folks, if you just didn't get those 3 lessons, please rewind this or whatever. Well, you can't rewind, right? Because here's the thing. Like, Vance, I tell people all the time, what business are you in? And they'll always say, well, I'm an attorney, or I'm a manufacturing company of, laser, computer technology or whatever, right? I mean, the CEO will say this or whatever. It doesn't matter what size company either. I mean, $100 million company sometimes will say the same thing. And it's like, well, what business you in? Oh, we're in the healthcare space supporting hospitals and this and this and that and this, right? And I'm like, what business are you really in? And coaches, consultants, notorious for this, right?
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's like, guys, gals, he, she, they, whatever you want to call this in this world today, you are in the business of selling. And so what I hear you clearly understand is that concept. So you've set your businesses up to be able to sell, and then you set your businesses up so that you have systems and processes around those businesses that give you the ability to actually sell more because you can focus on that. Like when you were saying, I don't know what I would do in the business. I'd probably go look for acquisitions or something like that. Well, that's the sales hunt, right? You're looking for a new sales growth process in the business through an acquisition and all of that. And you're now setting yourself up in the differentiation world. And folks, if you've never gone to Disney, I highly recommend you put $1,000 aside for the day because that's probably what you're going to spend, and go to Disney and just experience what Vance and I are talking about, because they have it down beyond science. I mean, they are like, it is the most amazing sales system, I think.
And go without kids. Don't
Yeah.
bring kids.
Yeah.
Go and put your business hat on and sit in a merchandise shop, sit in on Main Street and just watch, not so much the people, but watch how Disney positions where the merchandise is, where the shops are, how they orchestrate this giant sales machine. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it all started with Walt. Everybody thinks Walt was just this cartoonist and he created this most wonderful place. Walt he wanted sales. And there's a great story about it when they had the visitor center in Orlando before they started construction of Walt Disney World. He made a visit to the visitor center and he was walking through it. He got so mad. He's like, I can't buy anything here. Where's the Mickey Mouse plushes? Where's the postcards? I can't buy anything. We should be selling stuff. So even Walt knew back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we got to sell stuff. So you're right.
He was a very, very intelligent guy. And I watched a documentary on Mary Poppins.
Yeah, that was great.
And it took well over a decade for him to close that sale on Mary Poppins, because the lady who wrote the original book was very hard to work with, we'll say. And he just, like a great sales guy, continued the process and said, this is going to happen. I'm building a relationship. And he did through different methodologies. And constant follow-up on the process happened throughout. And it doesn't surprise me what you're saying, Vance. I'm actually leaning in thinking, my God, what can I learn from Disney, right? And I agree with you. Go there and just sit and watch the machine and play, because it's really an MBA class on business. And
if you think about Epcot,
yeah,
right? And if you go to, it's divided in two sections. You have Future World and World Showcase. And if you go back to World Showcase, which is where all the countries are,
yeah,
there's really only one ride. Well, now they have two. They got Ratatouille in France, but there's one ride, which is what used to be in Norway, which is the Frozen ride.
Yeah.
Everything else, it's a shopping mall in disguise.
Yeah.
There's no rides. There's no attractions. It's just stuff to buy.
Well,
you walk all the way around that blessed thing. The UK, nothing to ride there. Canada, nothing to ride there. Italy, nothing to ride. I mean, all the way around. It's food and merchandise.
Yeah, I think Mexico had like a little boat ride or something in there.
Oh yeah, they do have the little. Yeah, it's their version of It's a Small World. But yes, you're right.
And but you're absolutely on target. There's nothing there, but go experience the culture, buy things from that culture, and then come to the restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. And folks, just so you know, I'm trying to think if we were Italy or whatever, but we bought pizza. And if I remember correctly, Disney, don't sue me over this because I can't remember, but I think the pizza was like $37 a pizza or something, Advance. It was like, I remember the bill being like $80 or something for four of
Right.
us when we got out of there for two pizzas and some drinks or something like that, right? And it was like, my God, what is the profit on this pizza, right? It's like it's insane. Now it's a very big pizza, but still, I mean,
Sure.
incrementally is like, come on. I mean, but the thing is it's set up that way, and it's not. Here's the thing: when you go to Disney, folks, you go to Disney and you know you're going to spend the money. You know it right up front. So when you're in there spending the money, you think, well, okay, this is, a little more than I would normally pay for pizza. But it's Disney. I'm here. I'm experiencing this. And, and like you said, some people save their entire lives to go get that experience. So what experience can you create, folks, for your buyer or potential buyers in your business, and understand, as Vance is saying, it's a sales business, systems, processes, and everything is to set up to do one thing: sell somebody something, and then sell them something again, and sell them again. And just like Disney, go tell your friends and expand their circle so their friends start to come, i.e. referrals, right? Which, by the way, Disney's not paying for. I mean, what kind of acquisition cost is there, right? I mean, that's
Right.
awesome. And it is one giant machine. And, if you don't want to go to Disney, go to some great retailer that's doing extremely well, walk into their building and take a look at how they've set that store up,
Yeah.
right? There are reasons there are things in the back of the store because you got to walk through the whole store to get to what you really want.
Right.
And inevitably, you find things that you go, geez, I didn't think about that. And you know what? I do need some trash bags. I do need this. I do need that. Oh, wow, look at that cute little thing over there. And then,
Yeah.
I know this, and my wife's going to kill me because every time we go into a store, she's like, oh my gosh, look at that thing. And then she's off onto the aisle, right? And it's down to a science. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Vance. If you set your business up just like that as a science to sell, then it really doesn't matter what business you're in, it's going to happen. Is
Right.
that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and Disney modeled their retail space on casinos. So they went and studied how casinos were built. And if you know anything, if you've been in a casino, there's no straight line out of a casino.
Right.
You got to run into a card game or a nickel slot or something. So Disney does the same thing. There's no straight line out of any merchandise shop. I mean, you get off of uh, uh, Pirates of the Caribbean, it dumps you into a merchandise shop. It doesn't just put you back out into the street, and you're going to run smack dab into the barrel of Jack Sparrow eye patches and swords.
Yep.
And if you got your 10-year-old kid with you, there's a 90% chance you're buying that because it's right in front of you and you just experienced Jack Sparrow. And then, of course, there's no straight line to get out. So, what can you do to put things in the way, not to create friction, but to put things in the way to let people know that you have other services, you have other things that you can sell, other products that will prompt them to do it. Dentists and orthodontists are the worst at this. And I consult with a lot of them. And I can immediately usually generate significant revenue on one visit for them. And it's because they don't have all of their consumer products, the teeth whiteners and the fancy toothbrushes and the toothpastes. And I asked him, I said, do you have this stuff? He goes, yeah. I said, where is it? And she goes, well, it's between Marge's legs. And Marge is, the lady who does sets your next appointment for you. I said, well, what the hell's it doing down there? It's not going to do anybody any good. Marge certainly isn't going to talk about it, and people aren't asking for it. So I run over to Staples and I just buy a cheap white folding table. I slap it in front of Marge's desk. I take all of that crap from Marge's legs. I put it on the table. And now people literally got to run into that table while they're making their next appointment with Marge.
Right.
And they're like, oh, look, teeth whitener. Oh, look, toothpaste. Let me buy some. I mean, they go from zero to, hundreds of dollars a day in sales just because they moved it from between Marge's legs to actually being visible for the customer. And literally, they got to walk right into it. So, you look for ideas outside of your industry for ways to sell and serve. So, Disney looked to casinos for the idea for their merchandise shops. You think about drive-through restaurants. I'm sure there was a McDonald's executive sitting at a bank back in the 40s or 50s, and he's putting his money in the tube and shooting it up at the bank, the deposit. And I'm sure he's thinking to himself, man, how do I get a milkshake into that thing?
Yeah.
So drive-through restaurants came from the banking industry. So don't just be incestuous looking at your own niche or your own industry for ideas. Look outside to see where you can gather information, gather ideas that is just going to put you light years ahead of your competitors because they're not looking.
Without question. We're speaking with Mr. Vance Morris. The company's Deliver Service Now at deliverservicenow.com. And what I love what you just said, Vance, was, you can look at other places, and as you said, the teeth whitening and everything else was down under the counter. Marge is probably whacking it with her knees, and she didn't want it there either. And you just put it in a visible spot. And so, folks, how many of you could just ask a question for maybe a cross sell on something, right? You just sold something and something related to what you could sell, you could add it on. If you're a pool company and you install a pool, what about the maintenance program? What about coming back and for pool inspections? What about, maybe partnering with another company to offer a different service? So you could just add something on, because it doesn't cost you anything if the other company is doing it. For example, you're just adding more profit into your business. And Vance, I worked with a bunch of franchises with Jason's Deli, and I just like you, they had their cookies basically under the counter, right? And the cookies were there, but they never were offering dessert. So all we did in the script of what they did is when they're coming through and they said, hey, we're doing a special on cookies. Would you like them? They're 3 for, X dollars. And we had an 11% bump in sales off desserts alone, just offering what that is. So folks, don't think you're pushing this upon, and like Vance is saying, like you said, Vance, don't create friction. It's not like they come through the line of Jason's Deli and go, hey, you want some chocolate chip cookies or what? It's like, what are you stupid? You don't want chocolate chip cookies? Like, you don't want to be like creating friction in the process, but a simple ask, people are not going to be upset about that. And do you create aisles so people actually walk into the thing that you want them to ask about, like the toothpaste that you just did? And you're right about Disney. I never thought about it with Disney this way until you brought it up. But I remember going through and I'm like, oh yeah, wait a minute, where am I? I'm not on Main Street now. I'm here, right? And I was just in Las Vegas just recently, and my wife and I were trying to get to our meetings, and we're coming down out of the elevator or whatever, and we're walking out, and I'm like, why am I in the casino? Like, I took this elevator. I want to be on the front to go get the car. So what do? They make you walk through the casino and then buy the food things. And oh, by the way, it's first thing in the morning. What do you see? Coffee, right?
Right.
I mean, they've got it down. And so what do? Oh, we're hungry. Let's buy some stuff at the coffee shop. Well, hey, thanks to my $8 coffee, right? That's like 3 ounces or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just keep going. And so, folks, if you're thinking, well, this might be kind of shady or slimy, you can adjust it. You don't have to be the casino at 3 ounces of coffee for $8, right? And by the way, it wasn't the greatest coffee in the world, but it was coffee. And so you don't have to be that, you know, uncharacteristic of yourself. What Vance is suggesting brilliantly is you want to set your business up as a sales system, create systems and processes around there, and always make sure you understand what business you're in, which is you have to sell something because you can't deliver your product or service without selling it first.
Yeah. And I think you are doing your customers a disservice by not offering something else that will help your customer. Whether that be food, you know, that's a disservice. You know, hey, you know, with that sandwich, these cookies would be a perfect topping for that. You know, my carpet cleaning business, you know, our cleaning doesn't get rid of pet urine, but we do have a treatment that will do that. So it's not smarmy or, slimy to say, hey, you got to get our pet treatment. It's, hey, look, our carpet cleaning will get your carpet really nice and clean, but it's not going to get rid of the odors. Would you like our urine treatment, which will get rid of the odors? So you're offering a solution to the person's problem, or you're offering something that is going to make the experience better. It's like selling wine at the dinner table. You're getting this meal, and the server will say, "Hey, look, I had this. We tasted this wine the other day at our pre-shift meeting. I had it with the Osobuco, and oh my God, it was so good when I paired the two together. Maybe you might like to try it." That's offering a service to make an experience better. Or if you're in clothing or retail, hey, there's no better time to make the sale than after you just made the sale. Hey, sir, we're doing, 2 ties, get 1 free. You just bought a suit. Hey, here's 2 ties that'll look great with that suit, So upselling is it's not a sin, I mean, it's not.
No. In fact, it can be, you're creating an experience. Men's Warehouse used to do a really great job at this. I'm sorry, Men's Warehouse. I was in your place recently a couple of times, and you don't have the same experience they did like 7 years
Well,
ago.
not since they fired the guy.
Oh, okay. So I didn't, the thing is that, I've walked into Men's Warehouse before and literally have spent $4,000 in suits because the person was like, look, your skin tone matches here. Do you go to formal events? Yes. Well, what about this tie here? And what about this suit that would this elevate your experience? Oh yeah, that would be great, right? And so it was, and it worked, right? I would go and I feel good at the event that I'm at because I'm in this attire. And so what you're saying, Vance, is it's a noble pursuit to, if you firmly believe in what you do and say, like in your case, let's get the urine smell out of the thing. I mean, the last thing you want to do is have, important family members or important people over to your home in the middle of July and then having a urine smell come up and, permeating the house, right? Or think about it, folks, you have your kids playing on the carpet, little kids, you don't want them down there face
Kind of
first,
gross.
right? So it's a noble pursuit. You're not just selling, as we used to say, snake oil back in the old days, right? You're not just
Right.
selling something for the sake of selling something to rip someone off. You're actually doing them a service. And that's part of a noble sales process. If you morally feel that this person or this entity you're selling to really needs what you have, isn't it your moral obligation to actually just make sure you tell them about it? And then they can say no or yes, and at least and here, I'll illustrate it this way, Vance. I have a friend, Bill Brown. Bill, if you're listening, hi, love you, man. And Bill was married to a lady, Agnes, and he was young. And they had just had their first child, and a life insurance guy came in and was in their home and selling them life insurance. Agnes was pro on it. Bill was not. He's like, we're not making a lot of money at this point in our lives. We're in our early 20s. We're young. We don't need life insurance. And the guy was saying, well, you may not need it now, but someday you might. And you can get it now at a very low cost premium because you're young. You wait later and your premiums will be higher. And, and you've got this ability to cash it in and all the things he was trying to do.
Sure.
And Bill told me it was almost like to a point where Bill was going to throw him out of the house, but the guy was so persuasive in his conviction that Bill said, you know what, the hell with it. Just give me the policy and let's get on with it, right? And so they did. They wrote the policy, got it in place, and less than a month later, Agnes died from a disease, from an illness or an accident. And Bill told me, he said, Doug, if it wasn't for that insurance money, because he had a brand new baby, he said he never would have, he doesn't even know if he would have made it through that time because the
Right.
life insurance policy actually covered him to be able to recoup his life and figure out what he was going to do next. And I mean, obviously, lose your wife, it's not going to be a fun time, right? So the fact that that person had that moral obligation to push that life insurance policy through worked out.
Yep.
And so, folks, as Vance is saying, what's your obligation to your clients? If they're coming to you and they've saved their entire lives to do business with you, how are you going to serve them?
Right.
Vance, how do people get a hold of you and know more about you?
Yeah, best bet is the website that you mentioned, deliverservicenow.com. A couple of great downloads there to help you out. Actually, a brand new one I just did. It's 52 ways to wow your customers without breaking the bank. So it's 52 low or no cost ways that you can do today to one wow a week, actually. Whether it be a handwritten thank you card or just picking up the phone and calling. All different ways just to show your appreciation, show your customers that you're thinking about them. And that one's at wow52ways.com. But either place will take it to you.
That's awesome. And if people want to reach out to you directly, is the way to reach out to you directly and say, hey, Vance, I'm interested in you helping me with your business.
Sure. Yeah, you can do it through the website. There's a contact me button, or you can reach out directly through LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Vance Morris. You can certainly send me a message. And my email is vance@deliverprofitsnow.com.
Awesome. Well, Vance, I want to thank you so much for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Thanks for bringing all the wisdom of your life and from your experience with Disney. It's been a great episode. I appreciate you, and I thank you for being here.
I appreciate it, Doug. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, did you take some notes? I did, lots of them. Now, if people did save their entire lives, how would you set up your systems? How would you set up your business to actually make sure that you delivered the most memorable experience that they could possibly do by selling them everything that you could possibly sell them for their benefit? Now, not creating friction, not creating, a system where you're just ripping people off, but you're actually creating a whole sales process. You're putting in sales processes, sales systems to free up your time, free up your business, and free up your ability to go do other things to create more sales and more systems and more processes, right? All for your clients' benefit because they saved their entire lives to actually do business with you. Isn't it a different feeling when you're asking these questions? And what about how Disney does this, right? Can you create systems that drive your people to things that are seemingly obvious to us when we're going through Disney that we're bumping into and go, wow, you know what? Let me try that. The goofy gummy bears, if you will, but you can't get gummy bears. They're goofy bears, right? And how do I remember personally when I was at Disney, I used to take my kids to a restaurant, but I'd wait at night. Why? Because it was right by where the fireworks were going off. They do it, in the park. And so, you go in and you spend a meal, back then it was still like $125 for 4 people. And we're talking 20 years ago, right? But you're sitting there watching the fireworks after and the experience and the joy on the kid's face. I should say faces because there was more than one. It was amazing for me as a parent. That's the experience. You understand? You're creating experiences for people who have saved their entire lives to do business with you. I would more than challenge you to sit down, write through what those experiences are going to be. All right. So again, if you want predictable revenue in your business, if you're not following up as you should and you know it, and by the way, most people aren't, If you don't know who your ideal right fit buyer is, but you think you do, and according to Harvard University and Wharton School of Business and several other places I could quote, 97% of people don't know. Anyone selling doesn't know in part or in full that actual ideal right fit buyer. Think about this. If that's off, your prospecting's off, your messaging's off, your operations is off, your customer service is off. All of this stuff is causing erosion in your business and lack of profitability. If you want to solve those two issues, we have masterclasses coming up. Just reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Put in the subject line, masterclass. Tell me which one you want to come to or both, and I'll make sure that we get the appropriate links out to you. All right, until next time, go out and sell a bunch of stuff. Treat people like they've saved their entire lives to do business with you. Play win, win, win. They win, you win, someone else wins, right? Have the moral obligation to make sure that they get in their hands what they should have, even if you have to emotionally battle with them on a light methodology, and keep the rapport, right? Make sure you're serving people. You're going to make someone happy. You're going to be happy. Other people will be happy. Just like I was at Disney, seeing the smile on my kids' faces, paying, at that time, $1,000 to actually go there for the day, right? I don't regret it. And you might say, well, geez, $1,000 for the day, to go out with your kids. If you've ever been to Disney and you've seen that look on your kids' faces, it's all worth it, right? Because you can make the $1,000 again. Why do you know that? Because you can sell. If you can sell and do it ethically, you will always have money. Until next time, it's Doug C. Brown saying thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a review. I know it takes a few minutes, but I'd be forever grateful if you just go to Apple, pop in, a review into Apple or onto Spotify. And until next time, go sell something, make someone happy, and to your success.